Parents forced me to celebrate brother stealing my gold digger ex 2 years after divorce. Now, they're furious I cut their cash flow. 2 years ago, I was married to a loser named Rhonda. I don't use this term lightly or out of spite. It's the only word that truly describes how toxic and draining she was as a partner. Without a doubt, she was the most emotionally, mentally, and financially exhausting person I've ever been with. The worst part is that back then, I was so blinded by love and hope that I gave her everything I had to give and more. Now, it almost feels unbelievable to say that I literally poured my blood, sweat, and tears into making our relationship work, only for her to take and take without giving anything in return. Rhonda and I dated for 3 years before we got married. During that time, she never managed to keep a decent job, which was frustrating. But at least back then, it seemed like she was trying. She would take on odd jobs here and there and say that she was working for something better. I chose to believe her because we were still young, and I thought that at some point, her ambition would wake up and she would start doing what was necessary. I learned, and I give this as advice. Don't expect people to change. They can change, but if it doesn't come from within them, they never will. Then life threw us a curveball. Rhonda suddenly started pressuring me to get married, saying she couldn't wait any longer. She insisted that it was important for us to formalize our relationship. She said she wanted to do the right thing for me and our future together. At that moment, it seemed like a romantic and honorable gesture. I thought that marriage would put her in the right mindset and that it would finally make her mature, but it didn't happen. Foolishly, I agreed to marry her thinking it was the best decision for us. But if our relationship had cracks before, marriage turned them into huge gaps almost immediately. After we got married, things started falling apart. The little effort Rhonda had put into our relationship before disappeared completely, and her true colors began to show. Rather than taking on her role as a wife and partner, she seemed to think that marriage gave her a free pass to stop trying altogether. Rhonda started spending every penny she made on shopping or alcohol. This happened daily. She would stay out until late in the night, trying to spend money by buying things she wasn't even remotely interested in. Meanwhile, I was working full-time, and desperately trying to keep us afloat despite the situation. I took on the responsibility of all our bills, household expenses, and everything else. If I ever thought Rhonda would change, I was wrong. She never helped me. One night, she came home and wasn't feeling well. A wave of panic hit us when she collapsed on the floor. Deep down I knew something was terribly wrong. My first instinct was to take her to the hospital. But she flatly refused to go. She said it was probably nothing and that she wanted to stay home. In that moment, I realized I couldn't reason with her, not even in a major emergency. I had no choice but to force her into the car and drive to the hospital, shaking with fear and concern all the way. The doctors confirmed she had severe alcohol poisoning from her night out. I felt like I couldn't breathe, and I didn't know what to do. To make matters worse, when Rhonda recovered, she blamed me for embarrassing her by taking her to the hospital. She had the audacity to suggest that somehow it was my fault that she had gotten sick, or worse, that I had done something to cause it. I was already drowning in stress, questioning every move I'd made, and here was the woman who was supposed to be my partner, rubbing salt in my deepest wounds. She even told me that I was overreacting and that other men would have just let her sleep it off. For weeks after the incident, I lived in anxiety and shame. I was completely depressed, crying for hours in bed, unable to even get up and go to work. Rhonda didn't try to comfort me or help me process the loss. Instead, she just made me feel worse, as if I didn't even deserve basic compassion. She acted with disgust every time she saw my face. I was the one who finally had to get up and try to distract myself with work. Despite what I was going through, I knew we needed the money. Rhonda had a job that she had gotten, but she lost it due to downsizing, and she was the perfect candidate because she was the least productive, always showing up late and tired. After that, our situation worsened. Instead of using the setback as motivation to find another job or contribute significantly to the household, she just gave up. She spent every single day at home scrolling on her phone, leaving dirty dishes, empty cans, and trash all around, and then acting as if it wasn't her responsibility to clean any of it up. She didn't lift a finger to help around the house, not even the bare minimum. I began to feel so overwhelmed by the weight of it all that I was dangerously close to taking my own life twice. But somehow, with sheer willpower, I managed to pull myself away from that abyss. Despite being sick and completely exhausted, Rhonda kept expecting me to cook for her, clean up after her, and take care of all her whims. No matter how tired or sick I was, she demanded everything from me while giving absolutely nothing in return. If I said anything, she treated me with indifference, or worse, she got angry with me. One day I realized that something had to change in my life. I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep sacrificing myself completely. When I finally mustered the courage to ask Rhonda for a divorce, she became manipulative. She blackmailed me financially and threatened to ruin my credit score and reputation. As if that wasn't enough, she then took my car keys, phone, and wallet to make sure I couldn't leave the house without her permission. She threatened me, saying she would never allow me to divorce her and that I had no choice but to stay with her forever and continue paying for everything, no matter how miserable I was. But the next day, while she was asleep, I somehow escaped and called the police from a neighbor's house. Fortunately, the police arrived and helped me retrieve my belongings. Since it was my house, I was able to get a court order to have her removed. She didn't face any criminal charges, but her behavior was documented. However, this gave me grounds to divorce her. After a lot of back and forth with her trying to delay, manipulate, and make things as difficult as possible for me, I finally got what I wanted. Our divorce was finalized. I walked away without giving her a single penny, not because she didn't deserve to lose everything after what had happened, but because she had spent everything we had already. As soon as everything was over, I packed up and left. Since that move, I've had no contact with Rhonda at all. Throughout all this, I only told my parents fragments of what was going on. At the time, I wasn't ready to share everything. Maybe I was ashamed or maybe I didn't want to talk about it because it hurt, and I didn't want to remember it. But only after the divorce was finalized and I started to heal did I feel ready to tell them everything. When I opened up to my family about everything that had happened with Rhonda, they were shocked. My parents, especially, were devastated to know what I had endured completely alone. My younger brother Kevin also seemed to sympathize. Now, 2 years have passed since my divorce, and my life has changed radically. I have a much better job than I had before. Since I now have a comfortable lifestyle, I've been able to send some money home to my parents. You see, my parents are already retired, so I want them to enjoy the rest of their lives comfortably without any financial stress. My brother Kevin still lives with our parents. He dropped out of high school and has a less than ideal track record. In many ways, he's like Rhonda. Although he managed to leave part of his past behind and stabilize his life to some extent, he still has a long way to go. Now he works as a waiter at a local restaurant and lives with our parents to save on rent and other expenses. I'm very aware that the money I send home helps him indirectly, and I'm okay with that. At the end of the day, they are my family, and I want them to be okay. This week, my parents called me to share some exciting news. They had discovered that my brother Kevin is getting married. Since I didn't know he was dating anyone, I wasn't expecting any of this. So naturally, I asked who the lucky girl was. That's when I realized something was wrong. There was a long pause before they nervously said that they needed me to promise not to overreact when they told me more about the woman. And then, they told me, Kevin was going to marry my ex-wife Rhonda. I asked if they were joking. My dad likes that kind of joke, so I half expected them to laugh and tell me who the real girl was. But no, they weren't joking. My mom said it was true and explained that Kevin and the family had avoided telling me before because they knew it would upset me so much. Apparently, they wanted to soften the blow, waiting to give me this big news. She then continued to say that Kevin and Rhonda had met by chance a few months ago when Rhonda walked into the restaurant where Kevin works. What started as a casual encounter turned into a friendship. That supposed friendship quickly blossomed into a romance between them. According to my mom, it had only been a few months, but they were already completely in love with each other. Kevin not only started a relationship with her, but had also decided to marry her knowing perfectly well that she was my ex. He knew exactly what she had put me through. The woman who had made my life a living hell. And now she was about to become my sister-in-law. I stayed silent on the phone while my mom kept talking, trying to convince me to accept them. She said Rhonda seemed to have changed after the divorce and that Kevin believed in her ability to be a better person. Mom even mentioned how happy Kevin seemed and suggested that maybe if I saw him in person, I would be more understanding. She proposed that I should try to see this as an opportunity for a fresh start for everyone involved, including Rhonda. But the only thing I felt was like I was going to vomit. The mere idea of Kevin marrying Rhonda made me physically sick. I tried to argue with my mom trying to make her understand that Kevin didn't know who Rhonda really was. I told her that she and Dad should have made Kevin see reason and protected him from someone as toxic and manipulative as her. To my surprise, my dad admitted that he had tried a few times, but Kevin was so happy that he couldn't convince him otherwise. Then Mom dropped another bombshell. She revealed that Rhonda had actually met with them some time ago, and apparently during that dinner, she had fabricated a ridiculous narrative about how I was to blame for our divorce. According to Rhonda, I had made her life difficult and had thrown her out for no reason. My mom said that it was always important to hear both sides, even though I had financial records along with documentation of her manipulation. Mom thought I was exaggerating and that maybe not everything had happened as I told it. My dad then intervened asking if maybe I hadn't gotten over Rhonda yet. He even asked if I was still in love with her or something, which would explain why I had trouble accepting her relationship with my brother. Of course, I had moved on. But this wasn't about getting over the past. This was about my brother bringing that toxic woman back into our lives and my parents acting like it wasn't a big deal. When I told my dad this, his response was infuriating. He said that if I had really moved on from everything, I shouldn't have a problem accepting their relationship. He argued that Kevin and Rhonda were adults, and if they wanted to get married, it was their decision, not ours. According to him, I needed to stop making this about me. He said I should be happy and support my brother, especially because Kevin had been too afraid to tell me about his relationship with Rhonda from the start. But now that they were getting married, they expected me to forget about my failed marriage and be happy because two wonderful people found love. Hearing this only fueled my anger. My brother wasn't afraid because he thought I would be unreasonable. He was clearly afraid because deep down he knew this was wrong. He knew what Rhonda had done to me and still he chose to be with her. Now everyone was trying to emotionally manipulate me into supporting them. When I realized we'd been talking for a long time and weren't going to get anywhere because they wanted to believe Rhonda was innocent or didn't care what she had done to me, I decided enough was enough and hung up. Since then, I've been thinking, and I really don't care who my brother marries, but I won't be part of that family, emotionally nor financially. Do they think it's wrong that I stopped financially helping my parents after all of this? Update 1. When you think about publishing your story on the internet where everyone can read it, even though I've omitted details or changed names, you still feel a certain fear. There's no greater vulnerability than telling the world what has happened to you. But I'm glad I shared this on Reddit, as I've received more support from strangers than I ever received from my own family, which says a lot. Let me clarify something. I'm not just upset because Kevin plans to marry Rhonda. I'm completely horrified that he even chose to be with a woman like her in the first place, knowing everything I've told him. It's devastating to think that my own brother would even consider being with her, much less marrying her. How can he justify being with such a woman? How can he think she's a safe or trustworthy partner after everything she's done? What's worse is that somehow, Rhonda has managed to manipulate not only Kevin, but also my parents, making them believe a twisted version of the facts. Or, as I said before, maybe they just don't care what she did to their other child, and are just happy with how Kevin feels about all of this. Either way, believing her lie that we were both to blame for our marriage or that they don't care about everything she did to me is practically the same. As the older sibling, I worry about Kevin's well-being. Even though we've had our ups and downs like any siblings, I've always cared for him and wanted the best for his life. That's why this situation is so painful for me. That's why I've tried to make them see that what they're doing is wrong on so many levels. It's not even just a matter of him marrying my ex. It's the kind of person he's marrying. I'm sure he's going to have a marriage just like or much worse than the one I had. That's why I'll try to speak directly to him instead of my parents. I believe the situation deserves talking to the ringmaster, not the monkeys. I'm aware I might get the same response from my brother as from my parents, but at least I'll have peace of mind knowing I warned him. If he doesn't want to listen, at least I can say I told him so when it all falls apart. I don't think Rhonda has changed enough to become a responsible person who holds a job and doesn't manipulate others. Maybe I'm too pessimistic, but that's what I believe. That's why I decided to schedule a video call with Kevin this week. I want to talk to him directly about the situation. I need him to understand exactly who Rhonda is and what she's capable of, just in case it hasn't been clear to him until now. I understand that sometimes when you're in love, you let a lot of things slide. I know because that's exactly what happened to me. That's why I want to do what I can to help him. After that, it will be his decision to do what he thinks is right. I'll have that conversation and come back to tell you all about it. Update 2. Well, the video call with Kevin didn't go as I expected. Let me clarify, I expected it to go badly, and that he would still want to marry her, but I didn't expect it to go completely badly. I gathered all the evidence I had, including the financial records documenting the financial exploitation I suffered at the hands of Rhonda. I had never shown this to my family before, but this time I wanted to show them undeniable proof of the financial damage and emotional suffering she caused me. Not to make it about me, but to warn Kevin about the kind of woman he was dealing with. I didn't show them everything because I didn't think it would be necessary, but now it seems it was. After putting the evidence right in front of their faces, I think it still hasn't been enough. The video call I thought would be just between my brother and me started off badly because my parents were with him. Still, I continued with what I had planned to do, and at least they could see everything too. I explained everything as clearly and calmly as possible, telling him that this could also be his future if he stayed with her. But instead of listening, Kevin immediately got defensive. He argued that Rhonda had suffered just as much as I did during our marriage and accused me of being an attention seeker, saying I was using my past experiences to gain sympathy from everyone. He told me that Rhonda had told him that I had provoked her into manipulating me financially, and that I was wrong to involve lawyers when she took my possessions. As if that wasn't enough, Kevin had to bring up a sensitive topic for me, like her hospitalization, saying that maybe it was for the best that I wasn't with Rhonda anymore because I clearly wasn't meant to be her husband for long, nor be in her life at all. Here was my own brother, using that against me when I wanted to help him. The only thing I noticed during the call was that my parents mostly stayed silent. When they spoke, it was to try to calm us down rather than taking a firm stance. They didn't defend me. Instead, they seemed more concerned about keeping the peace and agreeing with my brother. The only remotely rational thing my dad said was that he promised to keep an eye on Rhonda to make sure she didn't hurt Kevin like she hurt me. I asked how they planned to do that, and that's when he informed me that Rhonda was apparently going to move in with them after marrying Kevin for a while. I told him that was a very bad idea. Actually, a terrible one. However, he said it was their house, so it was up to him, not me, to decide who could live there. He told me it was the right decision for Rhonda to move into Kevin's room after the wedding, since they didn't have a place of their own yet. My parents said this arrangement would allow Kevin and Rhonda to save money while letting them keep an eye on them. I warned them that once they let Rhonda in, she would never leave. She's a parasite, plain and simple. Once she feels comfortable, she will find all the excuses to stay, draining their money and bringing more problems. They were opening the door to disaster. I asked my parents if they had really thought this through. Did they really believe Rhonda had changed? Did they think they could handle her better than I did after everything she had done to me? My mom dismissed my concerns, saying that maybe Rhonda wasn't as in love with me as she was with Kevin, and that's why things turned out the way they did. I told my parents without a doubt that if this was how they were handling things, then I couldn't just watch. I'm against Rhonda and Kevin's relationship, and I no longer wanted to be part of it. I told them that if they wanted to continue supporting Kevin and Rhonda's twisted relationship and let her move in with them, then that was their decision. But from now on, I would cut contact with them. I didn't want to be part of a family that supported my manipulator. I also informed them that I would no longer send them money, something I had been thinking about since my original post, but had never talked to them about. I didn't want to keep supporting my family along with Rhonda. When my parents heard this, they said that if I didn't want to talk to them because I was acting childish and not getting what I wanted, then at least I could keep sending them money so I wouldn't look so bad. After all, I was already giving a bad image as a brother and son. Kevin also agreed, saying he planned to quit his job and focus on being a house husband for Rhonda, giving her everything she needed, and that he needed my money more than ever because Rhonda still didn't earn enough. I told him that if he wanted to live that lifestyle, then Rhonda should be the one to finance it, not me. That's what women who want a house husband do. Kevin then yelled at me, accusing me of punishing them out of jealousy. He said I was cutting them off simply because he had what I wanted and that I hadn't moved on from the past. Well, if that's what he thought, then maybe I should stay away from them. And when I say stay away, I mean stay away with my money. It's time they pay for all this nonsense themselves. Since that conversation, I've stuck to my word and completely cut ties with my family. Update 3. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I'd like to thank everyone for their messages and supportive comments. I just found out from some of my cousins that Kevin and Rhonda ended their relationship. Apparently, Kevin found out she was cheating on him just a week before their wedding was supposed to take place. From what I've heard, he completely lost it with her. Given everything I know about Rhonda, it's no surprise really. She's obviously a liar, manipulator, and cheater, but I can't help feeling a little bit vindicated. I was right about her. She hasn't changed. The worst part is that during their confrontation, Rhonda emptied my brother's bank account and maxed out his credit cards. Things turned financially devastating for him. I asked myself, what do my parents think now after putting a financial predator with my brother? After knowing with proof that this manipulative woman had also drained one of their other children financially. Award of the year for the best parents, folks. Anyway, since the breakup, my parents have been doing everything they can to get in touch with me. Apparently, they've been begging my relatives to speak with me, asking them to convince me to resume communication with them now that Kevin and Rhonda aren't getting married. They want to fix things between us, ease the tension, and bring me back into their lives. I can't help but laugh at them because what they really want is to keep getting the money. I will only thank them for showing me how good my life is now that I don't have my family around. So I don't know why I would want to go back to them. It wouldn't be very smart. My career is thriving, and I've also started dating someone new. Right now, I'm not willing to risk any of that. Let alone be sucked back into my family's drama. They can keep begging all they want. They had their chances and blew it. It's time they look somewhere else. For anyone who might be worried about my safety, please don't. Rhonda can't show up at my house. I live in a secure apartment with cameras everywhere. If she ever shows up, believe me, I'll have her arrested. And this time, we'll make sure she faces consequences. Also, I haven't cared about her for 2 years, so I doubt she cares about me now. Update 4. It's been 6 months since my last update. I don't know if anyone is still following this story, but I wanted to share that my parents recently sent me an email saying that my dad had an accident and broke his hand. They claim that some of the medical bills aren't fully covered by insurance, and they've fallen behind on other bills. Now, they want me to pay for everything. They're also complaining that Kevin isn't helping them with anything, which surprise, I'm not at all shocked by. But what really bothers me is the sudden wave of apologies they're throwing at me now. Apparently, they're realizing how wrong they were months ago, and how badly they treated me for no reason. They even mentioned that they should have listened to me about Rhonda, and how sorry they are for pushing me away. It's so convenient that when they need money, they remember to apologize and tell me I was right. I just replied, I told you so, and then blocked their email. I don't expect them to stop there, but I can keep blocking any address they use. As for Rhonda, this second charge of financial fraud has earned her about 6 months in prison, most of which she's already served. It only took her emptying the bank accounts of 2 people from the same family for the justice system to do something. Speaking of slow justice, it would be interesting to see what she does when she gets out of prison because Rhonda isn't exactly one of those women who meditates and takes things calmly. Update 5. I received another email from my parents and it's been quite interesting. I've received a few more of these over the past few months, but none like this one. So here's the update with their email. My dad wrote to me because now he has a second medical bill to pay and obviously, they want me to help them pay it. It's a medical bill because they've been completely financially ruined and had to spend money they didn't have. When I was sending money home, they paid for better insurance. But when I stopped, they had to get one that covered fewer things. That's why they keep accumulating debts. The financial devastation was caused by Rhonda, who after getting out of jail, went to their house to coax more money from Kevin. My dad stood in the doorway to stop her from entering and she threatened to sue them for everything they had left. Rhonda was arrested again because Kevin called the police when she returned a second time, which I hope gives her much more time in prison than she got initially. However, my parents had to spend money they didn't have on legal protection and that's where the email for this update comes in. I've blocked this new email and I'm not going to help them. I would tell them, I told you so, but I already said that in the first email. So now they better pay for their own mistakes. As for Rhonda, I believe she's gotten another 2 years in prison for fraud, plus breaking a restraining order that my brother had against her. Although I don't have proof, this is what I've heard from friends who live in the city and who also know this from rumors.